Let us take a trip through the magical mystery land of Valheim. Hold my hand whilst we skip together through pasture and meadow. A world abundant with fruits and bounty. A place for hearth and home, where you can transform your world into a vision of your dreams. A realm with no planning permission permits or health and safety regulations, where pigs and man commune together in peace and love. Well, until I need bacon. Obliterate everything because it's funny. Kill everything in sight because you're bored. Decorate your bed with human skulls. Welcome to Valheim. Let me be your guide. Valheim is a spectacular game. It also does a brilliant job of initially tricking the player into thinking it's dead simple and uncomplicated. Probably because when you first head out into Viking purgatory, you are skipping around a meadow in your Viking rag nappy, picking raspberries and making campfires. However, as you advance and progressively get bitch slapped in increasingly varied and diverse ways by increasingly threatening and dangerous foes, the player quickly discovers that developing some proper strategies might possibly result in leaving slightly less gravestones scattered across the land. I decided to make a quick beginner's guide to Valheim for many reasons. It's an excuse to make another video about a game I genuinely love playing. I recommend Valheim to people, so I guess they deserve some support. And most importantly, it's a game where you get to punch pigs to death. So I feel that I have a responsibility to help facilitate and enable pig punching in any way I can. In-game only, of course. In real life, I love pigs. I want a pig as a pet, because frankly, they're smarter than many humans. And you can't eat humans when you're hungry. Apparently it's considered rude. So what better idea than to make a beginner's guide expertly crafted by an absolute non-expert, whose main boast is that I have systematically made all the best high quality mistakes in Valheim at every stage. What could possibly go wrong? Spoiler warning. This video contains references to in-game content that you might not have encountered yet. I guess I should offer a disclaimer. I am by no means an authority on this game, but I am, however, specialised in being a beginner. And this is a beginner's guide, right? Well, I do happen to be an expert at that. There are many more detailed and expert guides on specific aspects of this game, so if anything piques your interest, I'd suggest following up with some more specific research from one of the many excellent and helpful Valheim content creators. I would also qualify that nearly all of my suggestions have been covered by someone else at some point. They say there is no such thing as an original idea, and I guess I tested that theory to destruction. Every single brilliant idea I came up with, I could Google it, and it's already been done. Underground bases? Been done. Sundials? Been done. Earthbank defences? Done to fucking death. However, I wanted to put together a guide on this game regardless, and at least it will give you something to watch on your phone, at work, whilst you're sitting on the shitter. I would, however, like to thank all the many Valheim content creators whose guides have helped me achieve many of my in-game goals, like die less, tame pigs, and survive better in the swamp. I salute you. So here it is, 21 kilotons guide to getting your arse handed to you on a plate slightly less often in Valheim. Learn to fucking cook. Like most normal people in real life, I hate cooking. It's boring, and everything ends up tasting of charcoal or burnt plastic. In a perfect world, all food would be in the form of paste, delivered in toothpaste tubes, so you could just squeeze it into your mouth. Sadly, however, in Valheim, cooking is not only unavoidable, but desirable. Valheim is a survival game, not an RPG, so your base stats like health and stamina remain pretty much constant. If you want to temporarily increase your stats, ergo increase your chances of not getting dead, you need to master the art of constantly cramming high quality food into your pie hole. Imagine if you got out of bed in the morning and you looked like this, then scoffed down a pizza, chips and curry sauce, and a roast chicken, then suddenly looked like this. It makes no fucking sense, but this is how it works in Valheim. Would you rather go into a fight with 25 health, or 100 plus health, bonus stamina, and a rolling tick of health regen? Because armour alone will not save you. Armour reduces the damage you take, but if you have fuck all health under the armour, one missed block and you are dead. Start with a basic fire, cooking meat, and work your way up to cauldrons and fermenting. Remember that basic shit food like carrots, raspberries and mushrooms can be combined and cooked into decent foods. Eventually you will also learn to prepare and ferment meads to make health, resistance and stamina potions. Food is the fuel that drives your little Viking engine of destruction. It is not optional. Oh, and remember that you will likely die a few times doing pointless shit around your base. You will get so used to rocking up with high food buffs and rested bonus, you will feel invincible. Then you'll be pootling around your base the next morning, installing decorations, and not notice all your food buffs have expired. Your health will drop to practically nothing, and you will fall off a ladder or step in a fire. And it's good night fucking Irene. There is no shame in it. Ladders have probably killed me more often than Desquitos. But damn, keep an eye on when your food buffs expire. Hunting means free pies and rugs. I guess that's true in real life as well as in Valheim. Hunting is an incredibly important skill that requires patience and expertise. So fuck that, sounds like an effort. If you're feeling particularly lazy, you can always consider setting up spike traps in animal spawn locations. Then periodically show up and scare the shit out of the little bastards so that they impale themselves on the traps whilst they're running away. It is true that these kinds of hunting methods result in unnecessary cruelty and animal suffering, which is fine because I'm hungry and they're food. Failing this, however, I will concede that sneaking around with a bow is probably the best all-round versatile hunting method. Make sure to go hunting whilst you still actually have some food. Stockpile. Think prepper, because you are a Viking prepper. You've even got the weapons, the body armour, and the slightly crusty beard. Going hunting when you are desperate for food is like going shopping when you're hungry. It leads to bad decision making. Unless you consider 8 bars of that chocolate with the moon dust in it, good decision making. Do you want to go hunting with 100 health or 25 health? You decide. Farm food. Stockpile both it and the raw, unprepared, uncooked ingredients. For reasons you will discover later. Become a food farmer, motherfucker! Why grind food when you can just let it grow itself? There is a reason why so many preppers learn to grow their own food. They're fucking too broke to buy food for a start because they spent all their money on tactical combat trousers and strange tools with lanyards that come with a carabiner on them. I know that's where I pissed away most of my cash. Seriously, growing food is absolute total fucking win in Valheim. I'm talking potentially hundreds of extra health points and stacks of stamina, and it's all fairly low effort. For those of you unfamiliar with farming, in Valheim you will frequently see this horrible green festering shit spreading everywhere across the ground. People who don't live in big cities refer to these things as plants. Out in the world you will find things like carrot seeds and turnip seeds, and these can be planted As you tech up in-game, you will unlock a cultivator, which allows you to till the soil and plant the seed. Back in the good old days, people didn't bother with all this shit. If you wanted food, you went to a food van. There weren't stupid rules and idiotic patronising laws about organic foods, pesticides, and recycling stuff. So if you needed to recycle something like your car, as long as you were responsible about it, such as dumping it in a flooded quarry or setting fire to it, the government didn't stick its nose in your business. These days, you can't do any of this shit. It's political correctness gone mad. Sadly, however, in Valheim you are going to have to tap into your inner goat wool cardigan wearing hipster vegan and start growing plants. On the plus side, you can trap and tame pigs by getting them to chase you into a pen and throwing mushrooms at them. They will come to love you, and then you can punch them to death and eat them. Yummy. An unhealthy obsession with barnyard animals is positively encouraged in Valheim. Read into that what ye will. Oh, and I, like many, realised far too late, when you're picking your crops, you don't have to press the interact button every damn time. Just hold the pickup key and walk over the crops. Rested bonus is your business. When you're well rested, you get a rested buff, plus 50% health regen I think, and plus 100% stamina regeneration. This is a big deal. Go cut down trees without that stamina buff and you will gas out faster than a sumo wrestler running a marathon. The more comfortable your crib, the longer the buff. Make sexy fireplace rugs, a fancy chair, a table, little pretty drapes, and all that shite. Watch a proper guide about it if you want to max this out. If your rested status times out, either sit by a fireplace to recharge or go back to your crib for a nap. Managing your rested bonus means a free constant power-up. A quick tip early game. A Lox rug is an easy +1 level of comfort. Despite being in the plains biome, you can kill these relatively easily from the safety of the next biome. Thankfully, Valheim seems to model a trajectory of your arrows over incredibly long distances. Combine this with the good fortune that Loxes are dumber than a hipster's Instagram account. Not that much dumber, but dumber. Which is, nevertheless, very, very dumb indeed. All you need to do is find the edge of the plains and keep an eye out for Lox whenever you go past. Then when you see some, shoot it with a bow from long range. You might need to aim very high, but once you get a hit or two on it, it will start stropping around and eventually track towards you. Then you can kite it right off the plains towards you in somewhere safe like the meadows and hopefully finish it off. Be warned, with normal arrows and a low tier bow, this might require a lot of shooting. With a better bow and some fire arrows, not so much. Just make sure it dies in your biome and not in deep water or back on the plains. So time that kill shot right and you will get to pull sexy naked seduction poses on your new deep pile rug in front of the fire. Be aware of the time. Start to get into the habit of mentally tracking the time of day. Sadly, Valheim does not let you craft a Casio watch out of resin, so you will have to monitor the visual cues. You know, like it's starting to get fucking dark. That's a fairly big clue. The sun comes up at 6 AM and goes down at 6 PM. A day in Valheim is 20 minutes long in-game, 10 minutes of night, 10 minutes of day. Daytime is nice. Nighttime is shitty. Stay indoors at night or the bad men will hurt you. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Use your minimap orientation to keep an eye on that shit so you don't get caught out in the woods at night. It's not fucking rocket science. Actually, when I come to think about it, tracking the movement of the sun using a compass bearing to determine the time of day is, I think, orbital mechanics. So I guess it is technically rocket science. But it's the easy part, not the complicated bit. And by complicated bit, I of course mean making dehydrated Neapolitan ice cream. Because that shit right there is genius. Building a basic sundial at your base will not only help you wrap your head around the day-night cycle, but it will seriously help you judge how much daylight you have left when you're running purgatory-based errands. Usually not a massive deal, but if your errand is to, say, run a cart down into the swamp, grab 600 pounds of iron ore, and get the fuck out of there before it gets dark, you might want to know roughly how much daytime you have left. Making a basic sundial is not hard. Face south, put down a beam, put 3 small beams down at 45-degree increments. Carefully stick a torch right there and let it burn out. You're good to go. The shadow from the torch stick will tell you approximately how much of the day is left. It doesn't have to be perfect, you only need to know roughly what part of the day you're in. Morning, noon, afternoon. You don't need a fucking digital watch. It's Viking purgatory for fuck's sake. You ain't going to be organising a hairdresser appointment around a 3:30 Zoom meeting and then dashing off to fucking yoga class. It just has to be good enough to provide the following information. If I head off somewhere dangerous right now, have I got enough daylight left, or am I going to be fucked? Job done. Develop your shipwriting skills. The 3 basic boats in Valheim are as follows. The raft, which is made from pig scrotum and goblin jizz. The carve, which requires brass nails and other shit. The longship, which requires iron nails and lots of other shit. The better your technology, the better your boat. The longship, naturally, is huge, fast, strong, and can carry a fuck ton of booty in its giant cargo hold. I dream about it at night and fantasise about rubbing myself along its length. The carve is a small, decent scout ship which can carry a few bundles of crap. The raft is a fucking death trap, which is best avoided entirely if possible. I suppose sailing in a raft is a slight improvement on trying to swim across an ocean and drowning horribly. But not much. You know those crazy fucks that try to sail across the Atlantic in a bathtub? Well, after 5 minutes clinging onto your raft, you will start to get jealous of that bathtub. I used a raft recently when I was scouting far from home and wanted to see if the giant lake was indeed a giant lake or had an inlet on the other side. I managed to check out the area and not die. And that is probably the nicest thing I can say about the raft. You might not die. As soon as you get brass nails, get a carve. And as soon as you get iron nails, get a longship. It should be the first things you do. The carve is like this. A longship is like this. A raft is like this. Since we're on the subject of sailing, practice swimming occasionally. Millions of Marines can't be wrong. In this game, you are going to end up sailing. There is a reason why Marines are taught to swim before they're given a fucking warship. And that reason is called drowning. If you see some water, go for a little swim and work up your swim skill. It might save your life later. I haven't drowned yet, but I've come bloody close. There is no shame exploring the high seas in your skiddies. If you're heading to a known location where you intend to set up a bridgehead base, by all means head out with your posh clogs and fancy weapons, if that is what is required. I would note, however, that it's far more sensible to head out in your skiddies with the materials for a portal, set up a small lodge, erect the portal, and then consider grabbing your Gucci armour once you are safely established on terra firma. The armour sets have different benefits and are not universally just better than the previous one. If I'm scouting around in Black Forest, troll armour is fine. It gives stealth, doesn't slow you down or cost much to replace. Heavier armour is great for dangerous locations where you're going to be taking a lot of damage. So if you intend to make a hot landing on the coast of the plains and storm the fucking beaches like a one-man D-Day, Knock yourself out and dress up like King Arthur. But for day-to-day seafaring, thus far, I have yet to identify any benefits of hardcore metal armour when you're either sailing or drowning. So my advice to thee would be, if you are going sailing and particularly exploring by sea, boss yourself together some leather armour or just wear your loincloth, because top tier armour does nothing to protect you whilst it's rusting at the bottom of the ocean. And before anyone says it, I know bronze doesn't rust. There is a reason that when people go to the beach, they wear this. And not this. Or this. Similarly, don't be a snob about low-tech gear generally. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. If you're setting up a bridgehead in meadows or Black Forest by sea, just take basic bitch gear. There is nothing worse than being stuck miles from home with exploring to do when all your bronze and iron gear is worn out, so you have to resort to using a stone axe because it's the only thing you can craft and repair with a level 1 workshop. When I head out exploring, I generally take a fully upgraded flint axe, the antler pickaxe, and sometimes a simpler bow like the finewood bow. Why? Because I can repair them all on the fly, out in the arse end of nowhere, with a level 1 workbench made out of twigs and fucking pebbles. Pretty useful shit if you end up going on a week-long exploration mission and you ain't got any quick portal home. Archery skills is Viking sniper school. Nothing says badass Viking more than jumping bare-chested into combat with nothing but your Viking axe and glistening, unchafed nipples between you and a glorious death. But absolutely nothing says, I'm smarter than stupid, than crouching behind a bush 100 yards away, killing every motherfucker with a bow, and then having a quick wank and a nap. Bows in Valheim are a gift that keeps on giving. As you upgrade them, they do progressively more damage, have a flatter trajectory, do more knockback. So yeah, not only do they do more damage as they get better, but it becomes harder and harder to miss. As soon as you can, make a bow. Make it, use it, gently stroke it at night, and constantly upgrade it, until such time as you can make an even better model from higher tier materials. Just note that in Valheim generally, any item, weapon or armour that is completely fully upgraded is already close to the stats of the vanilla version of the next tier up. Different arrows do different amounts of damage, and some do different types of damage, like fire, poison or frost. It is however worth noting that the more exotic the arrow, the bigger the shag it is to make them. Powerful arrows do more damage. However, a more powerful bow does more damage and only requires one investment. An overpowered bow with basic arrows costs nothing to run. A shit bow shooting high-end arrows requires constant ammo expense and resources to replace the valuable arrows. Both probably do around the same damage. So your primary focus should be on upgrading and maintaining the best possible bow you can have first, so you can do massive harm with just shit wooden arrows, then save the fancy arrows for bosses or particularly dangerous encounters. A workbench is your flexible friend. Don't forget you can slap it down anywhere, build a quick fire, snap up a roof, repair your low level shit, make some basic arrows, put up some defences. It doesn't have to be in a base. I often forget that when I'm out and about, you can quickly gather a few wood and 5 stone, throw up a bench quickly, make a fire, craft some arrows, and immediately pack it down and head off again. Learn how to play housey. In Valheim, being able to craft your own personal little house on the prairie is an invaluable life skill, or should I say afterlife skill. The build mechanics start out simple, but can quite literally become as complex and convoluted as you want them to be. And furthermore, with time, you can reap the benefits of added utility and functionality as your abilities grow. It's entirely up to you how far you take it. There are, however, some basic rules. Smoke from your fires needs to be vented adequately. Comfort items make your house more comfy. Go figure. You definitely want decent perimeter walls and a door to keep the bad men outside. If you love something, put a roof on it. You should have a roof above everything wooden that you don't want to rot and deteriorate. The best way of learning is by doing, said the trainee airline pilot to an air traffic controller. Here is what I did. First, I learned to make a basic shack. Then, when I felt a bit more confident, I made a slightly more sophisticated shack. Naturally, the next logical step was building a Shinto temple complex. Easy as fuck. I think I realised that I was getting slightly obsessed with building in this game when I tried to recreate the Great Lighthouse of Alexandria. I think that probably counts as taking it a bit too far. Here's a building that's modelled on a particularly handsome, and dare I say, alluring, industrial unit in Port Talbot. As factory units go, I thought it was a especially charming example, and it inspired me to build a homage. I guess stylistically a lot of my buildings don't look very Viking-ish, but fuck, I'm from London. My default architectural style is brutalism. I just wish concrete and asbestos were options in the build menu. And I'm talking blue asbestos. You know, the good stuff. The smokestack was surprisingly difficult to build and maintain, so I had to Fred Dibner that shit. For those of you who don't know who Fred Dibner is, he is basically the Mike fucking Tyson of chimney stacks and steam engines. The landscaping was inspired primarily by Mordor and the Battle of the Somme. And before anyone thinks it, no, I'm not using cheats or mods. I literally destroyed every single square foot of that by hand. I am become death, destroyer of worlds. Whatever your personal aesthetic style, adapt a drill for quickly setting up a 2x3 or 3x3 shack against the clock. Just a workbench, secure walls, roof, a fire and a bed. Just enough to keep you safe until the morning. To quote Master Sergeant Greer from Stargate Universe, it doesn't have to be pretty, just quick. When you're exploring, you will need to be able to throw up some shit shack quickly when time is against you and the sun is going down. On larger projects, I would strongly suggest that when you first start building, you lay out a full floor plan in floor tiles and check everything is flat, properly aligned and correct before going full Michelangelo. I shit thee not, it's piss annoying finding out stuff isn't aligned when you are trying to fit support beams on the third floor and then realise the mistake runs all the way through the building right down to the foundations. You will be forced to bodge the whole job or strip it back to the ground and start again. Oh, and tessellate your floor tiles. You will thank me later. Alternate the direction of your floor tiles every time so they form a checkerboard. Not only does it look pretty, but when you're trying to measure up and count floor sections, it's a fuck sight easier if every other one is a different orientation. I would love to say I thought of this one myself, but I stole the idea from the Alhambra. Which is only fair, really, considering the Moors stole the whole of fucking Granada from the Spanish. Build small or go large. Personally, I find you can do everything in game just fine with either a small hunting lodge or a big base. Avoid the temptation of building tons of medium-sized bases where a garden shed would have sufficed. If you need a hut, build a fucking hut. If you need a base, go all in and build something huge enough to house all future tech, pig pens, crops, and a giant fucking foundry. Just don't waste time fucking around in the middle building bases that serve no other purpose than being incredibly spacious and over-decorated motel rooms. I wanked away far too much time early game building proto-bases that were entirely redundant, within hours of me walking 400 yards up the coast. Proto-bases, incidentally, that were far bigger and more time-consuming than was required, but too small and cramped to function as a proper, real base. If you need a camp for the night, build a fucking camp. 4 walls, a roof, a fire, griddle, a box and a bed. Mark it on your map, and move on in the morning. Save all the Bob the fucking Builder routine for when you go ham and build a substantial base in a key location. You can seriously deplete your progress and resources by overbuilding huts that really only serve as a place to crash if you can't get home before dark. Don't build a fucking shantytown every time you need to take a rest, or you'll just turn Valheim into a giant shithole littered with badly designed DOS houses. When you need to build a proper base, well then it's time to go to town. Location, location, location. In-game, as in real life, it's generally a good idea to live in a location where the locals are not both intent and capable of killing you and smashing up your crib. I guess that rules out Portland. And London for that matter. Your first shacks will no doubt be in the starter biome meadows, but as you branch out you will have to develop some purgatory-based property development skills. Every player has their own strategy or personal preferences for deciding where to build, or at least they should have a strategy. If you don't, I humbly offer my own. I always follow these guidelines. Build in a spot that is close to other biomes, but not too close if the biomes are dangerous shitholes like plains. Build by respawning animals and plants. Build near or on the coast. You are basically going to travel by land, portal or sea. If your major bases are on the coast, all options remain open. The developers are debating whether or not to change this, but currently you cannot transport metals or metal ores via the portal, so you have to move them by sea or land. For the record, I personally like this restriction on metal transportation because it forces the player to haul certain gear by land or sea and makes higher tier repair workshops more geographically precious. So I very much hope they keep these restrictions in place, at the very least on the harder difficulty settings. All this being said, here is a perfect example for a base location. I found a reasonable sized area of meadows on an island. Just to the west is Black Forest, just to the north is plains, and just to the south is swamp. Neither swamp nor plains are so close I get fisted by high level enemies whilst I'm skipping around, picking berries, humming Nordic nursery rhymes and watching the sunset. The entrance to the base opens its doors to an area routinely populated with deer, pigs and lizards, and just beyond that are mushrooms and berries to pick. Because it's meadows, I have access to fine wood, and fresh flint washes up on the shore every few days. It's fucking Nirvana. Literally. That's what I called it. Nirvana. I fall out of bed and just leaving the base I have my bags full of food and supplies, and no Desquito is going to pick a fight with me whilst I'm tending my turnips. If there was such a thing as a Viking afterlife estate agent, they would no doubt describe this base as being situated in a beautiful location conveniently close to the shops and amenities in a low crime area. Hoes before bros. The humble hoe is your best friend in Valheim, once you unlock it and learn how to use it. Its 4 main functions are: it can flatten out ground to make it easier to build or road making. It can do a pathen function which beats down the grass and weeds only. It can pave areas with stone when you unlock the iron technology. And it can raise the level of the ground, subject to you being in range of a workbench with enough rocks in your bag. All of this is useful, but The raise ground function, once mastered and used with precision and efficiency, is a superb way of converting bags full of rocks into high rampart walls, stone walkways, and docks. It's a fucking peach. Good defensive stake walls are great, but building your base on top of ramparts is pure win. Obviously, I'm not basing this advice on the fact that I'm a pissy pants coward and combat ineffective. But those medieval types got this shit squared away. Rain down death from above and incorporate some parapets and murder holes into your design. Fighting like a Viking is admirable. Fighting like you are not a cretin, well, that's priceless. Ambush should always be a factor, especially in base defense where the enemy assumes they're ambushing you. Additionally, you can build docks and coastal defences with the hoe to protect your precious Viking navy. If you really feel like going full Das Boot, you can go wild and build the Valheim equivalent of a U-boat pen. 1.5 million Kriegsmarine can't be wrong. Well, with the possible exception of fighting on the wrong side. And maybe, as 3/4 of all U-boats were lost in World War II, perhaps serving on a U-boat at all wasn't such a great idea. But details aside, they made really nice bunkers. That's a fact. I really wish I had more hoe jokes to crack, but I've got nothing. Finally hone and develop your tactical running away skills. As an extreme hardcore ultra elite pro gamer, who incidentally isn't particularly good at video games, gets frightened really easily and never normally bothers to learn tactics or develop any skills, I have learned to appreciate that the fundamental core component of success in survival and combat based video games is frequently my ability to run away tactically whilst I shit my pants. There's no shame in it. Well, the running away part at least. Being brave is commendable, having skills is admirable, but the issue here is not attributes, but their combination. If you have mad skills and you are brave, that's just fucking dandy. If you have no skills and shit your pants a lot, that's fine too. If you have no skills and you are brave, well, that's a fucking disaster waiting to happen. Know yourself. Always have a grade A tactical running away plan where preferably your survival chances are massively enhanced and your pursuers are going to have a high likelihood of getting fucked while they chase you. I'm a huge fan of staggered spike defences at my gate entrances. So if I have to hightail it back home, I weave between them and hopefully the dumbass pursuers get spiked while they chase me. Just remember to regularly repair the spikes because even if they just hit you in the balls a few times a day, they wear out quite quickly. Apparently. Obviously, I never run into my own spike traps. I'm not an idiot. This is a survival game. It's not a first-person shooter. You don't get points for dying well. You just get a very long run back in your pants. Running away is just purgatory's equivalent to an ejection seat. Situational awareness. As many of us came to appreciate in Tom Clancy's The Division 1, situational awareness is a very important tactic when you are heavily outgunned by a force of hostiles that completely outmatch you. Doesn't always help, but doesn't hurt either. Being aware of the enemies around you and developing good recon skills, however, sounds like a lot of hard work, so I generally opt for reducing tactically important locations to obliterated dystopian hellscapes instead. If there ain't no cover, then there ain't no place for the bad men to hide. Sadly, Agent Orange isn't an option in Valheim, so at the very least clear the scrub, chop down the undergrowth and saplings and consider felling a few trees around your base so that you have a clear line of sight and no pesky aggressive mobs are going to sneak up behind you whilst you're milking the pigs or whittling. It's also brilliant for hunting, as you can see all the critters from your base before you've even headed out. Similarly, your tactical running away skills will be seriously enhanced if you chop down a bit of scrub on your regular pathways or route home so you don't get tripped up by the bushes and scrub whilst you are strategically fleeing from a group of 5 angry goblins, or whatever the fuck they're called. They look like goblins. I don't really think it's purely coincidence that so many tropical third world failed state shitholes that are constantly experiencing war and civil unrest just so happen to be huge fans of machetes. Think about it. They live in a dangerous place. There's lots of plants. They all love machetes. That's fucking science. Clear the scrub and see more of what's going on. Hoarding is good. Ever seen one of those reality shows about hoarders? People that literally feel compelled to collect everything and can't throw anything away? Well, they will get on like a house on fire in Valheim. Everything in the game has some use, even though you might not realise it at the time. Even basic shit, like thistles, mushrooms, carrots and those annoying greybeard eyes eventually become essential ingredients for really important stuff. There is literally zero vendor trash in this game. Well, there are gold coins and gemstones, but all the actual stuff always has a use. Stockpile it all and thank me later when you don't have to go back and grind 20 thistles to make some potions. Hoover up everything that isn't nailed down, because at some point you will realise it's invaluable. Not even kidding. See those beautiful stone circles? They represent the heritage of Viking lore and the spirits of fallen warriors. They quite literally embody the sacred legacy of warrior Nordic culture. Well, you should smash those up. You could make a really nice fireplace with those rocks. Whilst playing, you will end up with boxes full of so much random crap that certain items like pine cones, ancient bark and dandelions will probably start to piss you off. But at some point, you will unlock some crafting recipe and breathe a big sigh when you realise you need hundreds of the little fuckers and you already have them stored away neatly in your boxes. Talking of resources, here are a few quick tips. Don't fuck around with boxes. If you build a hut or a base, don't be tight. Just build and stack more boxes than you think you need. You will fill them later. It's less of a shag than building 2 boxes. Filling them, building a third, reshuffling the gear, then another, and repeating this process forever. It's a bore fest. The pardon function dampens down the grass. If you pass an area with mushrooms or berries, use pardon on the area to make this shit more visible from a distance. Next time you're passing by, you will see a big patch of clear earth and immediately know it's a harvesting point. Mark them on the map if it's a particularly big hoard. Backtrack and check your stores. If you're passing an old base, go and have a rummage in your storage boxes. I went back to an old base to install a portal and discovered all kinds of useful crap I'd forgotten all about. A couple of Surtling cores, some bronze armour, a mace. Shit I stowed once upon a time and completely forgot I had. Talking of Surtling cores, I recently discovered that Surtling cores can also be farmed in the swamp. Early game, get them from burial chambers, but when you can handle the swamp, look out for the fire jets which spawn the Surtling creatures. Kill them and they drop cores. Incidentally, Surtlings die on contact with water, so make sure to be a proper shitbag and use your pickaxe to dig a trench around the fire jet. Next time you swing around, there will be a bunch of cores dropped by all the little Surtlings you drowned. Don't feel guilty. Surtlings are bastards. Mine copper nodes like you are removing and digging out an infestation. You know those YouTube videos about pouring molten aluminium into ant and termite nests to see how extensive the underground structure is? Well, here is the equivalent done in Valheim on a copper node. This is what it looks like on the surface. This is one I excavated. It's like a fucking iceberg penetrating the terrain. If you just dig out the top, you will leave 2/3 of the copper hidden in the ground. Carts are fucking win. I get it. I didn't want to use them at first either. I'm a Viking. I'm not the sort of arsehole that has a cart. Whatever that sort of cart-owning arsehole is. If that's even a thing. Look, carts aren't very fashionable. I get it. No one ever got lucky by telling a girl, "Hey, do you want to come round later and check out my cart?" But carts are godly, nevertheless. Normally you can carry £300. Your equipment will probably come in at around £100. So that leaves you with about £200 carry capacity. That's 2 stacks of wood, or 2 stacks of rocks approximately. In scientific terms, this is categorised as fuck all. You can carry well over a ton of crap in a cart. You know those guys that trundle around New York with shopping carts covered in tin cans, who make money from recycling them? Well, they are very literally world professionals in trundling around with more crap than they can actually carry. Well, they use carts, and they do this for a living. These guys are the Jedi fucking masters of crap transportation, and we should all learn from their sage wisdom. Use your map, and use your map notations. Every version of Valheim is procedurally generated. In your little world, you will want to make notes on your map as you progress. Where your bases are, where your little camps are, where your supply dumps are, where the copper veins are, where the dungeons are. And when you've cleared them, left click will even put a cute little red cross through it, so that you know it's been swept clean. If you don't bother using the map notations, then one of the most important resources, e.g. your map, is just giant green blob surrounded by blue blob. Just knowing what is land, what is sea, and ballparking the rest introduces trial and error, where you could have had a plan, a route plan, and half a fucking clue where you were trying to get to. You need to be moving from base to base, point to point, from safe haven to safe haven, and exploring deliberately and systematically. You don't want to be fucking off into the woods like Bilbo Baggins, sucking your thumb, getting lost, running out of food, with half-broken gear, and end up fighting all night. I did that a few times. It was fun the first time. After the novelty wore off, it sucked. Especially because you usually have to pack out with half the loot left on the ground. On top of this, corpse running is shite at best. Pushing up from a nearby base that is stocked up with food and equipment makes it a doddle. Running across half the map naked with no supplies and no navigation points makes an arse out of you and an arse out of... Actually, it just makes an arse out of you, because you could have planned for this shit. Now you're the naked running man. Or lady Viking. I'm not sexist. And when you inevitably die, the game will give you a nice marker on the map telling you where it happened. Immediately put your own marker on the map at the same precise location so you know where all your shit is dropped. Because when you die again, trying to get it back, the game will move that last death marker to the location where you just fucked up again. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Valheim is a survival game, and your primary survival stats are determined by gear, equipment and buffs. Sure, your skills level up with practice, but don't be tricked into thinking you're somehow magically getting progressively tougher the longer you play, because you ain't. Naked and unbuffed, you are basically as vulnerable on day 100 as you were on day 1. You might run faster, jump higher and drown slightly slower, but never forget that unbuffed and in your skiddies, you are never more than one mallet in the head away from fucking death. Mad skills and being good at video games will certainly help you get out of a few tight spots, but buffing the shit out of yourself with stuff is where the winning happens. Therefore, it naturally follows that if you're going to intentionally head off to some random dangerous shithole, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Eat your absolute best buff food, put on your best armour and upgrade it as far as possible. Pack extra potions like poison resistance if you think you'll need them. Craft some Gucci arrows. Choose your tools wisely. The Stag Breaker, for example, is not a weapon I use much, but in the crypts, its AoE damage can hurt and kill enemies the other side of a barrier. Just remember to divide the food buffs in half and leave the other half at base camp. If you die, you'll need some backup supplies to go back and reclaim your gear. Basically, don't cheap out and try and wing it. It's fine to fuck around in your pyjamas in meadows and Black Forest, but beyond that, things will start to get too hectic and the enemy damage output too high. In Valheim, gear and buffs are king. I had one person complain to me that they kept getting killed. I asked if they were eating enough food regularly, and their response was, "Do you mean the mushrooms?" Yeah, Valheim isn't working out so well for them. But at least now they have this guide to watch. Go full Stargate. Once you unlock portal technology, you should fully embrace its glorious wonderfulness and majestic utility. It's a bigger game changer than Elon Musk's Hyperloop train concept, with the added bonus that it absolutely won't malfunction and blast everyone out the other end, looking like hyperbarically tenderised turkey carcass. The progression in Valheim is more Vietnam than Call of Duty. It's about resources, bases, logistics and outposts. Portals should quickly become your primary means to haul all your shit up the line. A trip by sea is usually a day out on the water, but portaling is instantaneous and allows you to safely shift anything other than raw metals and ores. So learn a lesson from the portal virtuosos and Stargate this shit. Use your portals to establish bridgeheads, then backfill the location with pre-stacked wooden stones so you can whip your base up in a matter of minutes. Just be mindful to protect that portal carefully, because the locals always hate your guts in Valheim, and they hate your portals even more. It's like rocking up on the South American coast in a Spanish tall ship in the 15th century. You can act as friendly as you like, but they're probably going to start throwing spears at you anyway, and trying to reassure them that you're only here to rape their resources ain't going to calm anyone down. If I ever play through the entire game again, sorry, I will rephrase that sentence, because I'm a no-lifer basement dwelling gamer fuck addicted to Valheim. When I inevitably play this entire game through again, I will probably do a few things differently. My main base. Right from the start, I would be considering a potential location for a super base. I have ended up with one base being a portal hub and another base being my main storage and crafting base. Shifting all that shit and relocating it to another location will be a massive ball ache, should I decide to centralise my entire operations. At some point, it would be my preferred option to pick a location, preferably close to several biomes, near or on the coast, with a huge amount of space for expansion, and build my forever home. This way my portal hub will be my storage location and main crafting centre, and I will save myself a bunch of portal jumps, carrying and fuckery. And incidentally, stick a couple of go boxes down next to your base portals. If you have anything you plan on packing out to your main base, it can be conveniently stowed by the portal, so you can grab some every time you Stargate back to SG-1. Be warned, portals work in directly linked pairs, and they are indexed by giving them both the precise same, identical, case-sensitive name. So dear fuck, write that shit down or come up with a foolproof naming convention. You don't want to travel halfway across the map, set up a portal, then travel all the way home, only to find out you made a typo at the other end and can't hook that shit up. So call your bases and your portals simple things like shithole, butthole, or fuckhole. And for fuck's sake, don't use portal names that are complicated and easy to misspell, like Beelzebub, conscience, or diarrhea. Nobody knows how to spell diarrhea. Like literally nobody. Nobody normal at least. So if you got nothing from watching this video and didn't find anything useful here at all, at least you can go away knowing that you absolutely should not call any of your bases diarrhea. That's got to count for something, right? I name all my bases on the map and name my portals exactly as per the first word of the base's title. I would also strongly suggest having a portal hub at your main base, from which all outward portals are linked. This way, anytime you want to go anywhere, you portal to the hub terminus, then portal out to the desired location. Don't spider these motherfuckers outwards like a web, or you will constantly be struggling to keep track of how to get from A to B. Repair obsessively. I'm going to take a wild punt here, but if you love Valheim, you probably already have a few OCD genes doing some of the heavy lifting for you. However, one area that requires your particular attention is constantly repairing your shit. Repairing houses and boats is easy. Just get out your Bob the fucking Builder hammer, whilst in range of a workshop, select the repair function and magically repair things by twatting them once with a mallet. It's brilliant. Whenever I try and fix things with a hammer in real life, it never works, no matter how many times I hit them. Repairing your weapons and Viking fancy dress costume is even easier. Just go to a workbench and click repair. Free, fast, and no fucking unskippable adverts, as long as the workbench is high enough level for the item. Obsessively repair your tools and armour every time you walk past your workbench like your life depends upon it. Because it totally does. Similarly, your base gets attacked, weathered and bashed. Repair that shit before it breaks. Even as a slowpoke casual player, I realised that. You will thank me when a troll attacks your base for a second time and it doesn't immediately collapse. You will also curse yourself when you get halfway across the map and realise you forgot to repair your ship and weapons before you skipped down the jetty and hopped on the boat. I cannot stress this enough. Repairing should become just as much of a habitual reflex habit as deleting your viewing history before the missus gets home, tipping the strippers, and cleaning your rubber apron. Learn to prioritise. Prioritising is that skill we all like to lecture other people about, but fuck up ourselves constantly. Ask anyone who's sunk 100+ hours into Valheim when they should have been doing something more important, like finishing their Valheim video. In Valheim, it's easy to get dragged off topic, get sidetracked, and try and do everything at once, and end up bimbling around, not quite finishing anything. And if you enjoy doing that, well, that's just fine too. I'm merely humbly noting that bag space is severely limited, carry weight is finite, daylight hours are painfully short, and the seas, swamps and mountains are dangerous. If you head off to gather iron and fight every mob and pick up every rock and piece of wood and weed, your bags will be filled with shit before you even get to the mining node. If you're transporting metal by ship and decide to go exploring on the way, you might end up getting into trouble and losing the boat, the ore, and your life. I've found it very helpful to focus on the job at hand. If you want to collect rocks and berries, do that. If you want to explore, do it properly. If you want to transport ore, focus on that and try not to engage the hostiles. Learn to concentrate on what you need to do in the moment and what you need to carry for the specific job, because you absolutely cannot carry everything you want. When I head out to mine a copper node, I ignore and run past animals and mobs where possible. I don't want meat, trophies, skins, resins and wood filling up my bags. I'm strictly here for stone and ore. You feel me? Pick up that shit on the way home if you have any space left. If you're going to a burial chamber, carry a torch to search for those gems and coins that hide in the dark corners. If you go to a sunken crypt, maybe consider taking a couple. But don't carry around 3 fucking torches whilst you're gathering wood, just in case it gets dark. Oh, and talking of dungeons, if you don't want to get lost, follow the tried and tested method of getting out of mazes. The left-hand rule. Or just leave a little trail of yellow mushrooms on the ground like a row of breadcrumbs. Think outside the box. Part of the enjoyment of Valheim, for me at least, has been coming up with ingenious solutions to the problems I've faced. I didn't want to use a clock in real life to tell me the time of day in-game, so I figured out how to make a sundial. I didn't want forest arseholes smashing up my boat, so I figured out how to make jetties. I didn't want forest arseholes smashing up me, so I figured out they didn't like climbing ladders or jumping across gaps. I didn't want trolls smashing up my base or smushing me into burger meat, so I figured out how to build impregnable defences. I set up a base on the east side of an island and realised there was no easy way to get beyond it and sail further west. The island extended a huge distance to the north and south, and just sailing to the other side would take more than a day. Forget about safely sailing around it and then travelling to my desired destination. This was even more infuriating since at the island's narrowest point, I could walk across in just a minute or two. I mulled over the problem and eventually resigned myself to the fact that my batshit crazy idea was actually the most sane solution. So I said fuck it, and built a canal. I shit you not, I built a canal right across the island. I can now sail through the island in about 5% of the time it takes me to sail around it. At one point, I was having such a hard time in the swamp, I built a literal overpass directly to the sunken crypt and used it to blitz in and out at high speed without getting bashed up or killed. It's great coming up with all kinds of fancy ideas and methods to make life easier for yourself, and that is one of the beauties of this game. I would note, however, that with some specific problems, at some point there will come a time where you need to stop fucking around and put your man pants on and get stuck in. Or lady pants. I don't discriminate against pants. My swamp overpass idea was great, but a time came when I realised I was spending more time fucking around building than I was getting useful stuff done. So I buckled up, put on my best armour, buffed the shit out of myself with food and potions, and just wailed into the swamp. Take heart in the knowledge that eventually you will crack each biome and learn how to not only survive but to dominate. It just might take some time, experience, some hefty gear, and maybe a bit of improvisation. So yeah, think outside the box. Just don't forget that there is still a box. Don't be a wanker. There are some truths that remain eternal, some pearls of wisdom that transcend location and history and remain strikingly valid across all cultures in all circumstances, as pertinent and perpetually applicable general rules for life. Never wipe your arse with a broken bottle. Girls like weapons as Christmas presents. Always make important decisions when you're angry. But most importantly, don't be a wanker. Anyone who's been playing this game for a while has almost certainly done it. I know I have. For example, don't get high on your own supply. Load up all your best weapons and armour, all your circling cores, metal and food supplies, jump in a fucking boat and just assume you will safely transport it to the island you intend to find at some point whilst you are sailing randomly across the high seas. This is being a wanker. I've got nothing against lottery tickets. I'd buy that for $1, but betting the house on lottery tickets is plain stupid. Don't put all your progress in a boat and sink it on the high seas. Take calculated risks. Don't go all in on a wild bet with unknown odds and speculated rewards. People always claim that fortune favours the bold, but I call bullshit on that. That's survival bias at work. Fortune favours the bold is a saying that you only hear the one survivor say. The other 49 bold guys don't get to say jack shit, because they were bold too, and now they're fucking dead. Bravery is great in the movies, and fortune indeed does frequently favour the bold when you're talking about personal development, setting life goals, beating your push-up record, or any other number of activities where the only consequence of failure is basically not achieving the goal that you wouldn't have achieved anyway if you hadn't tried. However, if the consequences of failure are falling off a mountain, losing a gun battle, going bankrupt, or jumping off the hotel roof and hitting the concrete instead of landing in the swimming pool, I would personally opt for a strategy that is at least slightly more sophisticated than the Latin military equivalent of YOLO. In war, fortune tends to favour the guy who sits low in the trench, eats his beans, reads his porno, and never, ever volunteers for any medal-winning, danger-flirting, potentially body-bag snuggling stupidity. Valheim is a survival game, and I would roll with precaution before boldness. In reality, fortune favours people who take calculated and considered risks, where you balance the risks, dangers and potential rewards and costs and determine in a cold, calculating way whether it stacks up as a plan worth prosecuting. Fortune does not favour YOLOing. For every Leroy Jenkins, there are 1,000 other twats who wiped their raid and got kicked out of their guild. But the other twats don't get to become famous, so we just know about Jenkins. Don't believe all this shit about it's better to live 1 hour as a tiger than a whole lifetime as a worm. Bullshit. How are the fucking tigers doing now? There are about 6 of the mangy fucks in zoos around the world, and nearly all the rest have been hunted to extinction. Try being a tiger in northern China. You probably will only live for an hour before you're shot and your penis ends up in some businessman's soup. My point to all of this is simple. There will be moments in Valheim when you consider doing something very, very stupid indeed, and deep down you will know in your heart that you're about to be a wanker. When you carry on sailing, when really you know you should turn around and head for home. When you decide to just sneak across the area of plains in your leather armour to see what's on the other side. Basically, when you decide to do something incredibly fucking stupid, frequently whilst carrying valuable supplies you busted a nut gathering. At that precise point, save yourself a lot of pain and ask yourself, am I being a wanker? And if the answer is yes, stop what you're doing and head to the safety of your little Viking sex palace, repair your gear, store your valuables, and sit down by a cosy fireplace, munch on a fucking mushroom, and come up with a decent plan that does not have the word YOLO in it. So keep repeating that mantra in your head. Am I being a wanker? It's your new meditation exercise for Valheim. Well, that's about it for now. I would like to think that someone coming in cold to Valheim would find at least a few pearls of wisdom in this random collection of observational shit. If not, well, at least they got to see my tessellated floor tiles, which in itself is ample reward. If you've watched to the end of this video because you are literally that obsessed with Valheim that you will watch anything to do with the damn game, then maybe this personal advice may also be useful to anyone in a semi-stable relationship. Consider getting a decent divorce lawyer or relationship counsellor. Get your money out of your joint account, hide your best clothes, and start parking your car a few blocks away from the house. If your significant other is not playing Valheim 2, you need to start planning for that moment where in a few months' time they leave you because they got so pissed off with you for not putting the rubbish out, forgetting to pick up the kids from school, not washing yourself anymore, abandoning your basic daily routines and responsibilities, and not doing other basic life chores, because you were too busy stroking the pigs, collecting the honey, and building yet another entirely unnecessary base in Valheim. So there it is, guys. Don't call your base diarrhea. Don't be a wanker. Grow turnips. That's Valheim in a nutshell. But for now, good luck and happy hunting.